Welcome to Champagne Problems Podcast. I am your host, Robbie Shaw. Join us as we explore mental and emotional well-being, physical optimization, and the journey to discovering your highest self. Champagne Problems is brought to you in proud partnership with Bond Buzz, the alcohol-free social spirit. Bond Buzz is an award-winning alcohol-free functional beverage company creating adult drinks that are health-forward, all-natural, and uncompromising. They're on a mission to create a future where feeling good and getting buzzed exist in absolute harmony and not at the expense of your health. Their bold concoctions offer focus and energy while calming the nervous system for a night on the town or a productive afternoon. Bond Buzz uses only natural ingredients and a hyperfunctional blend of nootropics, adaptogens, and functional mushrooms to amplify the sensory experience. If you're looking for a drink to help you cool off after work or a drink to stimulate your mind and body without the harmful, icky hangovers, drink Bond Buzz for good days only. Brian Strahine, welcome to Champagne Problems.
I've been dying to be here. You know this.
Oh, that makes three of us.
Yep.
That makes three of us. Okay. How do we start this? Maybe
Give it
how
to
we
me.
met? How do I know you? How do we know you?
Yes, those are all great stories.
They are good stories.
Mhm.
We're going to have to go lifetimes back
Oh.
to answer that question.
Oh.
There's no doubt this has happened before in other forms.
Mhm.
That's for sure.
Oh, man. Yeah, so, well, Patrick and I were both part of an event. Was that 2 years ago? 3 years ago?
2 years ago.
2 years ago?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
It was the Counterculture Club alcohol.
Is that where we met him?
Yeah, first time.
Really?
I did.
Were you just like strolling around in there?
I was strolling around, fascinated about a social event
That had no alcohol.
that had no alcohol and people were having a good time.
Mm.
Wow.
Big wow. Big
And it
wow.
was a packed house.
Yeah. It's a very successful event.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It was a lot of fun. It was very loud, which was the cool part of it.
It
was
was
like-
loud.
You typically go to a bar, a big party where people are drinking and it's loud and it's almost obnoxious. That's not exclusive to alcohol. People gathered can be loud.
They can.
A lot of energy.
A lot of energy and people had a really good time.
Yeah. So I met you and man, sparks flew.
They did.
Big time. Big time. We kept in touch a little.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, made some plans, bailed on those plans, those kinds of things. And then eventually when did it really happen?
Well, the sparkler was lit when I saw your name come through for registration at the Men's Sacred Liberation retreat in
Mhm.
January of 2023.
That's
I
right.
saw
You remember the time of day?
morning
I'll take it.
on a Wednesday morning, and there was his name. And I literally had the biggest smile on my face.
Well,
Did you go?
I did go. It was and that's a wonderful segue into Men's Sacred Liberation, which is what Brian Strahine has founded. But first,
Yes.
we're going to do some rapid fire questions before we dive into what you do, why you do it, and why it's so damn important.
I love that.
So here's the first rapid fire question. What or who was your first live music concert?
Neil Diamond, 5th grade at the Cleveland Coliseum, home of the Cleveland Cavaliers.
But there were some interesting people there.
Very. And is he still alive?
Oh, yeah.
Is he still performing?
He Screech's dad, right?
No, is he really? No, everybody's Screech's dad.
From Saved by the Bell. He might be. That would be an incredible matchup.
Pretty sure he is.
I just remember him saying at that concert, which I don't know what that would have been, 1989-ish. He said he would continue to perform live until he could not anymore. And that was decades ago.
Neil Diamond.
Coming to America, I believe, is one of his big songs. I'll never forget the American flag.
Jamie, can you look that up for me?
And exactly, that should be the background song.
He's not Sweet Caroline, is he?
I don't.
I believe he is.
Sweet
I should
Caroline?
know this. I'm
I
putting
think he's Sweet
myself-
Caroline. All right, phenomenal answer.
Okay, what's your favorite smell?
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah.
my favorite smell. Well, I love to smell
I bet you do.
Mhm.
everything.
You're very sensual, huh?
Yes, sacred senses. I mean, this is the orgasmic way of living, is being in your senses. So, as a former lover said one time, keep the lights on, my
you
friend.
smell.
I can see.
Keep the lights
Keep the lights on so you can see what you're smelling.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I would say it's the scent of a woman. I think that's the name of a movie.
It is.
Right.
It is.
There's human scents are, as a whole, the most luscious scent on the planet, and everybody has their own scent.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mine smells like Fritos.
What kind?
I thought that might have been the
Ranch.
next question is, what do you smell like? Which I'd be happy to share with
let's
the group.
follow it up with what's your
Oh,
least
God.
favorite smell?
Oh, wow. The one that repulses me the most is the word that comes to my mind. I wonder if I have one. Least favorite smell. I would say that BO, when it's a pungent BO coming off of someone, because I'm going back to humans, right?
With no patchouli.
I've gotten used to that as a yoga
Yeah.
teacher.
Yeah.
That's everywhere. When BO and patchouli mix, that might be
That's
it.
what I'm talking about.
When you've put patchouli on the BO,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Not
not
good.
a recipe for something that I want to get into.
Even if that is the scent of the woman,
That just might be the indication that
that's not the one.
that's not the one, and I don't want to be next to this person in the class.
Do you read?
Rarely.
Are you reading anything right now in book form?
Yes, actually. It's a book that I have continued to read over and over again because it's my lifelong passion project, nonviolent communication.
Ah, yeah.
Yes, I've read it several times and I'm reading it again because every time I read it, I realize that this is the roadmap for humanity.
Deeper
Yeah.
and deeper.
Deeper every time I read a word on that page.
I love it.
Nonviolent
Nonviolent
communication.
communication.
Which I'm happy to get into
Yeah.
as we continue on.
Let's do, because I think that'll be inevitable. I love that. All right. Final question.
If you could know the answer to any question, what would you ask? Yeah. And I want you to go for it on this one.
Say it again.
If you could know the answer to any question, what would you ask?
Well, the first one, which I've wondered before, is in what way were we related in a past life? I've thought about that multiple times because if this is not our first rodeo.
Where did our energies cross before?
Yeah. Were you my girlfriend? Was I your poodle?
Mm-hmm.
Were we two fish in the sea? What kind of fish were we?
Were you his scent?
Now we're getting deep.
Was I a roach that you squashed?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Was I the guts of the roach that you squashed?
Even better.
What vibrational form did I take? Because again, in the spiritual space, we talk about this quite a bit. It seems to come up. Spirits and energies and spirit pacts, and we've made these agreements, spiritual agreements, cosmic agreements. So that really gets me thinking. It really does. And then I wonder, is this my first rodeo? Is it my 10th? And if we keep running into each other, as we always do, gas station, random eateries, there must be something drawing us together. And is
Keeping an eye on you this time
Exactly.
around, Strahine.
That's right. And I actually get curious about it because I've also been told we made some sort of agreement to come down here together. So I've been told this is our purpose in life, is to figure out this agreement that we've made. for what it's worth.
Mm. Mm.
All right, I'll answer the question when I feel like the time is right.
Yeah. Keep me in suspense. Got me running around town for
Mhm.
after you.
Hey, great answers. I expected no less.
Can we do some backstory?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I kind of know a little bit about you and your upbringing this time around, but where'd you come from? How did we get to men's sacred liberation?
Yeah.
Wow. Condensed.
It started on the streets of West Side Cleveland, Ohio. Born and raised, and men's sacred liberation was definitely birthed in the playgrounds, on the streets, and in the schoolyards of West Side Cleveland, Ohio. That's where my parents grew up. That's where they met, West Side of Cleveland at Lakewood High School. And I would say I lost my dad pretty early on in my life because he started to work his way up the ladder in corporate America. And somewhere along the way, around the time when I was in kindergarten, is when I remember him starting to drink heavily.
Mm.
And I don't really remember him being in my life after the first grade. My parents divorced in the fourth grade, and he moved away to another state. And we only saw him for a weekend, or a week, excuse me, each summer for a few summers until my ninth grade year, when I decided I did not want to tolerate his behavior anymore. And so we stopped speaking to him, my sister and I. She's younger than me. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
So luckily, I had a teacher in the 8th grade who really became the guru for me. He's my guru. And I remember watching him in the middle school cafeteria saunter through. He would have to cross through the cafeteria to get to his classroom. And so when his name appeared on my schedule going into 8th grade, it was like I had received the biggest gift on Christmas morning. And it was an energy. Maybe we were connected in another life. I don't know. All I know is something intuitively knew that I needed to be in this man's life and to listen to what he had to say beyond what was on the chalkboard. And so in high school, when things really started to crystallize for me in relation to me feeling really out of place in life and not really resonating, as a sound healer, I use the word resonance and dissonance. What I was experiencing in high school really didn't resonate with me. The parties, the drinking, the drugs, the sex, the parties, it didn't resonate. I felt very agitated at those parties. And I would visit him at his home, and we would spend Friday night in his living room doing this, talking about all the things about being human. And I felt at home, I felt this resonance as opposed to that dissonance, that like something is off at these parties. And today, to this day, we're still connected. We write handwritten letters to each other. We rarely talk on the phone. If I go home, I will see him. And people ask me all the time, what's men's sacred liberation? And in a nutshell, in one word, it's a relationship. It's a relationship between one man and another man. And as a clinical therapist, I've come to realize that very few men have a Bob theory in their life, who at a young age reached down and grabbed their hand and said, "Here, I'm going to guide you on this journey." And so I believe that it is my role in this lifetime to create opportunities where men can connect with other men in the way that I connected with Bob when I was in the 8th grade. So it's been a lifelong call, because that's something else I realize is men are floundering around because they don't know what we call it our purpose, or in yoga, it's our dharma, our path. Or Jordan Peterson spoke about it the other night when he came to visit here. Your meaning, what the greatest gift in life is your meaning. what meaning are you bringing to your life, or are you making of life? And I've realized a lot of men have no clue even what that means to have
Mm.
meaning in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And Bob helped me realize it when I was 12.
Hmm. And so part of your journey was obviously not part of it. Your journey was everything in between.
Right.
You left home, college, post-college. There's a lot that occurred during that time that led you to taking the steps, making the moves to start something actually formal that's doing this work.
Right.
What were a couple things that occurred in that time span that really pushed you more into this space?
Years of disappointment
Hmm.
with other men who didn't do it for me. They didn't. It was this perpetual conflict that I experienced as it relates to my value system and the value systems of the men I interacted with. And interestingly enough, alcohol has played a big role in those relationships. I've just noticed as a man growing up in America that the men I seem to have encountered over the years wanted to congregate in places where there's a lot of alcohol flowing.
Hmm.
And people ask me, "Oh, do you not drink or not drink a lot because of what happened with your dad?" No, not really. It's just alcohol has never resonated with me. When I put it in my body, it doesn't make my body feel good. I don't behave in a way that resonates with who I am. I don't say things and do things that resonate with my being, like how I want to show up in the world. And so I would continue to seek out relationships like I had with Bob, and I just kept missing the mark. I was showing up in the wrong places. And I realized when I moved here that it was time to answer the call to act and actually bring people together, call men out and bring them in to what we can call community or brotherhood. And instead of waiting for someone else to do it or looking for this at bars or church or wherever, work, the gym, I realized, wow, I can do better than this. I'm not going to keep waiting around and looking like this thirsty little guy. Where's the
Where's my
fountain of youth?
buddies? Where are my
Where's my
buddies?
buddies? Where's the water fountain?
What do you think? I know you've probably done a lot of deep thinking, or I would assume that you have, around what it is about our culture or society or the human condition in general that this point in our evolution we have to have places like that that have alcohol in order to connect, or why do you think that that's so prevalent in our society today?
I am a deep thinker. I'm really curious. I've been that way my whole life. And I've listened to people talk about alcohol and it being, we call it spirit.
Mhm.
If it is a spirit, what is this? What is the spirit of alcohol? And why is it that so many people are choosing to ingest it? And I have wondered if in some way we become possessed. Because in my office, when I hear people in conflict and like really traumatic experiences that happen in their lives, whether it was something that was done to them or something they did to someone else, almost all the time it involves alcohol. So now I'm collecting data, as a doctor of leadership, human leadership, which is the degree that I have, a doctor in organizational leadership and strategic change. I've 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 gone on a deep dive into what provokes people to do what they do and why do they behave the way they behave and what makes an effective leader and how we lead. And so I wonder, what is it that has us so connected to this substance? And what was the motivation behind creating it? What's the intention behind who is creating it? And why is it so prevalent in our lives right now? When I go to the supermarket, I cannot buy weed at the supermarket, but I can buy half the supermarket is alcohol when you walk in. It's literally there next to the fruit. And I'm just curious, why is it there? Why is it legal? Why does it seem to cause so much havoc in our physical lives and interrelational lives? And yet we keep drinking it. What is that? And I wonder if it's in some way, it serves to mask the true relationship we have with our own source energy because we're afraid of it.
So let's expand there because we can talk about alcohol, we can talk about food, we can talk about sex, we can talk about all the things that are effective masks for what you just said, because that's really at the core of the problem. And I do think there is an aspect of kind of perpetuation, within our society that is just riddled with alcohol that creates that whole kind of once over and generational where, it's like, why does alcohol work well for me? Why do I have the personality that alcohol works so well for me? Well, I was raised by someone who was an alcoholic and on and on and on. And whether they consumed it or not, it's you dig into kind of the mentality of the man and masculinity and healthy, communication and all those things. And it's like, well, why is it so why are it's almost as if we're born with it lacking. And so, to answer or to dive into your question is why are we this way? Why do we feel the need, to find this brotherhood? Why are we lacking so much? That's really where I want to focus. Is
Mm,
what's the problem? Like it's not alcohol's not causing this.
right.
It's cultural, it's societal, it's generational, it's hereditary. It's a lot of things going on as a result of many, many years of evolution that men are now in this place where we're empty, where we can't find true, genuine connection. We're scared of it. We're scared of pain. We're scared of sadness. We're scared of anger. And so we use these things like alcohol and the other list I provided to mask that discomfort. Where is that discomfort from?
Mm. Well, it sounds like we have generations of lost humans. And then we could ask, well, how did we get so lost? Maybe going back to what's the agenda for creating the alcohol? What's the agenda for creating this culture where we're told that we have to work long hours and sit at desks and cubicles and make a lot of money and buy things, and yet this continues to be reported to me that it's not sparking joy in men's lives. Sitting in a corporate office and making a lot of money and buying stuff is not sparking joy, and so where did the joy go? And if I just look at the history books, well, I wonder if because I don't know, I don't have the exact answer. I wasn't there. Maybe we were there in the past life.
Mm,
And so I often
likely.
wonder if if there is something called source energy or divine universal consciousness, what is it? And have we lost connection to that because we've been manipulated in some way? And so I'm not sure what the agenda is or where that came from. All I know is if in fact I'm not experiencing joy, then there's this desire to figure out how to get it back. And so that's why I see in this men's movement, which has been going on for several decades now in America, learning about sacred wisdom traditions and our ancestral lines. Why are more men talking about that? Why do you see more men engaging in sacred, what I would consider rites of passage rituals, like gathering around a fire and playing drums and sweat lodges and exploration with plant medicine? There's clearly a desire that men have to explore something about themselves, and they're trying to tap into it in these ways that I think our ancestors were very much connected to. And so, of course, as I sit back, I've wondered, well, maybe is this cyclical that we're just coming back around and our ancestors were there And now we're having this mass awakening of, wow, I'm really not happy sitting in this cubicle, drinking every night, making a lot of money. I'm really miserable. I want to connect to something else. What is that? And how do I get it? And so maybe we've been trying to the alcohol, the sex, the drugs, and now we're shifting our focus to something else. And everyone's looking for it. And I think it is these sacred wisdom traditions that our ancestors were connected to in some way and practicing.
Can we talk about that? When you say sacred wisdom traditions, what do you mean?
Well, people ask me a lot about what does the word sacred mean? Men's sacred liberation. Sacred, there's a word, it has a resonance, it resonates with me. It sounds like, it feels like, because really words are just vibration. Everything coming out of my mouth is vibration. So there's even something about the word sacred. It just has a special tone to it. It sounds special. The definition means it's something special. We often associate it with ritual. What's a ritual? Well, it's something that we choose to do consistently in our lives that has some meaning in the sense that I'm doing it because I believe it's bringing some value to my life. And so sacred wisdom traditions are rituals or practices that have been passed down from generation to generation, and rooted in these rituals is ancestral wisdom. So wisdom of whether it's this consciousness, the state of consciousness, or the consciousness that has been passed down through our ancestors. And maybe it's in our DNA when we're born, when we're conceived. And so it's tapping into that through meditating, just going into the woods and sitting silent, or reading the books of our ancestors who had something to say about it,
Or both?
or both. Right.
Yeah. When I think about sacred and wisdom, I always think about like universal, timeless functionality. Like they're like universal principles or practices that if you do them, they work for everybody at all times.
And what
they produce some type of favorable outcome,
that's right.
or it produces some form of spiritual evolution.
Mm-hmm.
So I love the explanation around the disconnect from our source, our power, ourselves ultimately, because I think, not to go too far back, but backwards in our conversation, what is it we're trying to fix here? What is it we're trying to change? Specifically with men's sacred liberation, we talked about, why are we here now? Why are we so ripe for something like this? And then it's like, well, what happened? And it's, I mean, my theory is a lot around power. Power is just another form of an addiction. At some point in our heritage, power became over other people and not so much over ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where I feel like I am today, where for so long it was money, respect, popularity, reputation, and all that is a power over other people. Meanwhile, I'm the one who's at home who can't look in the mirror because I don't have power over myself. And so, to your point, no joy. Hey, maybe you got money, maybe you got things, you got the pretty, partner, whatever it is, but you're not happy. Why is that? Because power over other things, other people, does not bring joy, and that's where we are as a freaking world right now. Is power over other people. So, men's sacred liberation is a full-on, turn it around, inward work.
It's very inward. Mm-hmm. And when I close my yoga practices, when I teach around the country, instead of namaste, which is the traditional closing greeting that we say to each other, it's welcome home. Because it's always an invitation to come home. That's what the sacred wisdom tradition of yoga, which many would argue is the oldest science. It's actually a science, the oldest science, arguably, on the planet. That is an example of a sacred wisdom tradition, a science, a tradition of how to be human. And it is an invitation to come back home, inward. And that's what we're doing through Men's Sacred Liberation. It's an invitation. It's always done with consent to invite men into this container or circle or brotherhood or community. These are quite synonymous, to invite them to come back home to their inner knowing of who they are, because they're lost. And to your point about what's been passed down along the way that's worked, I mean, just if we're just getting curious and looking at psychology, which we've all been connected to in our own ways in this field, if you just look at the trend, I mean, it started with laying on the couch and free associating, just talking. And then pharmaceuticals came onto the scene. So now we find that the most effective or productive approach is therapy and medication. But now you see this third friend join the party that we're calling somatic experiencing. Thank you. I believe it's Peter Levine who has created this approach to therapy. But you're hearing the words somatic and embodiment, embodied work, somatic work coming onto the scene. And we're realizing that being in the body and moving in different ways, like a baby moves, are really the path to freedom, or liberation, as I call it. How do we liberate ourselves from the enslavement of our own minds? It's through actual being in the body. And because that is scary as hell, we just turn to alcohol or things that will numb us. And instead, the invitation for our work is to do it sober, because then you really get to feel the feels. Because I wonder if instead of chasing joy or happiness at the deeper level, the cosmic level, the physiological level is bliss, which is the eighth limb of yoga. And even when I'm laying with my own parents dying, and the pain or the agony I feel witnessing the death of a loved one, if deeper in that is bliss, it's pure bliss, it's ecstasy, it's orgasm, which rarely do you hear death and orgasm associated with each other. And really, it's tapping into this visceral, primal, physiological, cosmic, spiritual experience of being human that includes all the things we might identify as bad or painful, or we avoid that instead of being in it and noticing, wow, it's all orgasm. Everything's an orgasm, even holding your own parent, watching them die. You're not going to get there when you're drunk.
Mm-mm. So walk us through a little bit of a retreat or an event, what that looks like inside the Men's Sacred Liberation container.
Well, it definitely is a call to action, which happens to be the name of my private practice, which I thought about, and I wrestled with it with both of you, actually, this name, because I really wanted to be intentional about the overarching umbrella name for what I'm doing, like my mission. It is literally a call, which you can tell from my voice I do a lot of. I'm using my voice to call out loudly to men to come forward. And it really is a call to action, because it means you have to take out your credit card and sign up for the retreat and pack your bag and drive to the space. It requires you to move somewhere. And the retreats are just a piece. It's like one of the doorways into that connection that I experience with Bob Theory on a daily basis. And that's just one avenue or one pathway into this connection with another man. So the retreats are what we're most well known for. They're twice a year at YMCA Camp Thunderbird, which is on Lake Wylie, just outside of Charlotte. And it's a call to men to come forward sober and to be in their bodies, and then to be in their bodies in and around other men in their bodies. So it's an embodied experience. It's an embodiment retreat or a somatic retreat because we're inviting them to be in their bodies. And so there's a faculty of, or a team of faculty members as part of Men's Sacred Liberation who are the most skilled and knowledgeable masters of their craft that I have called out and to step into this space with me to lead these men. Because what I know men value is respect, and they want to respect the men who are leading them. So I want to make sure that the men that I'm partnering with, who I am choosing to stand in their bodies in front of other men, know what the hell they're talking about and are not just pontificating, they're embodied. So you don't even need to hear them speak. You just see them walking or you go into their presence and interact with them. You know, oh, this man, are we swearing on this show?
Mm-hmm.
This guy's not fucking around.
Mm-mm.
And I'm thinking of one that you know in particular, Asher Strunk.
Mm.
That man does not fuck around
Mm-mm.
in any way with how he lives his life. So I'm not worried if I walk away or I can't hear what he's saying, that he's just spouting off stuff he read in a book. This man is, go back to the word practice. These are practiced men, seasoned veterans who know exactly what they're talking about and are going to help men get in their bodies.
Can you go over like what one of those techniques would look like when you say get into your bodies?
Right.
Like, I think about just some of our listeners, they may not conceptually be able to understand what that means. What do you mean?
So something, and this is something that I also appreciate about the men's work in America, you'll hear the term leveling up. So if you just think about this position we are in our bodies right now, would you say that our bodies are forward moving or backward moving?
No, I'm backward moving.
Backward moving. If the chair just disappeared, we would not fall forward onto our chests.
Mhm.
We would fall back. So everything has our hearts closed off. So we're not standing tall with our chest open in what yogis would call a heart opener or heart opening pose. Society has positioned us so that we're either so comfortable we're falling on our backs or we're internally rotated. So even if we were standing and the chairs were not behind us, we were positioned upright, our position would move forward. We wouldn't be standing erect with our shoulders up and back so that our heart is exposed. When I go to the weight room where many men spend a lot of their time, all of the positions have us backward moving: squats, kettlebell thrusts, dips, what do you call it? Power clean, all these classic weightlifting poses.
Mm-hmm.
So it has us back on our haunches. And in working with Asher and being a yogi, I've learned that looking at the phones and the computer has everything moving inward, or the chairs just totally relaxed and disengaged. And so Asher leads us in an embodied experience where he actually walks us through. I believe both of you have children. When they were babies, our babies, when they come into the world, they know how to move. They remember. You just watch how babies crawl. When they pick up something, they squat down. They don't bend over at the hips. They squat. If you look at other cultures in the world, when people are washing clothes, oftentimes you'll see the ladies or the men or the kids, they're squatting. They're preparing food. I lived in Africa. I've lived in Peru. They squat and wash clothes. They squat and prepare food. We're hunched over or in comfy chairs. So we teach men how to literally walk like our ancestors did. There's a way to move and twist at your hips. There's a way to keep your hands up and engaged, and everything is forward moving with your heart first and your eyes on the horizon. What were our ancestors looking for? Either the kill or avoiding being killed. And so we're literally calling men out to stand the fuck up with their hearts open and their eyes on the horizon so that they're not looking down with earbuds in, totally distracted and disengaged with life. And we're literally, if you came to the retreat, you would see 50 men walking around the campus at Camp Thunderbird with their eyes up like they're marching, but it's in a way that our ancestors walked. Bare feet, preferably.
Grounded.
I'm wearing my favorite shoes. Preferably, I'd be in my bare feet.
Okay, so a little more schedule structure for our audience who's going, all right, so I go to this retreat. I get it.
Yeah.
Embodiment. I get
God,
it.
I need this, but it's
my-
fucking scary sounding.
It's scary.
Because I mean, that's what I think about. Like when I think about, because I've done some of this stuff and a lot of probably other stuff that you do during your thing at times in my journey, and I think about my experience trying to get other guys and pull them into the fold, and some of the defenses or the
Fears.
that's weird, or that that sounds like some woo woo, like, but internally what's probably going on with them is, yeah, that sounds really fucking awesome. I would love to do that. I would love to be free and liberated.
But I'm scared.
Because I don't know what this is gonna look like. I don't know how people are gonna look at me. What do you say to those guys, and how do you, when you have guys reach out or, people inquire about what you're doing, how do you talk to that?
Thank you for that reflection because it has a beautiful segue into, as counselors who've worked with people, it becomes so clear that Bob Marley was onto something. If we are enslaved in the mind, if we are caught in the prison of the mind that is saying, for example, that's stupid, that's woo-woo, that's not for me, that's for those types of guys, that's for that type of guy, I don't need that. Well, I'm not here to convince anyone that they need it. I am here to convince every man that they can benefit from this experience because in some way, shape, or form, they're going to get uncomfortable. I don't need to watch endless amounts of reels on Instagram to hear other men talking about you grow in the moments of discomfort, not when you're sitting on your Barco lounger with your Miller Lite, smoking your doobie, watching endless amounts of porn and jerking off 15,000 times. So if that's serving a man or whatever he's doing and he is totally content, wonderful. Usually, almost 100% of the time, a man is coming because there's even like a 0.5% of discomfort in their lives and they want to do something about it. And so it's just hitting the send button, it's layered. Maybe they have a dysfunctional relationship with money. So spending $500 on a retreat is the most uncomfortable thing they'll do. I know men that have no problem spending $500 a week at the bar, but spending $500 on themselves, loving themselves, taking care of themselves, pushing themselves in that way is uncomfortable. So maybe it's that. Maybe it's, I have plenty of money. I'll buy $500 of anything. It's getting in a car and driving outside of Charlotte. You haven't even left Charlotte in 20 years, just leaving the city lines. It might be showing up at a place you've never been to. I've never been to Camp Thunderbird. I don't even know what that is. It's, I went to Camp Thunderbird when I was a kid. I got this covered. Wait, there's 50 guys I don't know. Now I'm uncomfortable. It's, well, I saw the agenda, but I need to know what we're doing every second of the day. So it's the not knowing of what we're doing. It's the, wow, I see it. We're going to be ecstatic dance is on the schedule. What the hell is ecstatic dance? My wife went to that last week and she showed me all these pictures of a bunch of people just flailing their hands around. I've never done that before. Can I flail my hands around in front of a group of 50 strangers? So
I gotta dance with men,
dance with men,
right?
talk to men,
Cry with
make eye
men.
contact with men. So
So
it's uncomfortable.
the flip side of that. So I'm sure you've had a lot of guys at your retreats that came in with those types of concerns or thoughts or, fears, risked it anyway,
They did.
experienced your retreat. What are they coming out of there saying? What are they coming out of there doing? What are they coming out of there changing in their lives?
Well, it's a process, which is why the experience is layered. So, this is what makes Men's Sacred Liberation the only program like it of its kind in this country. To my knowledge, it's the only one because I'm not catering to men who live all over the world right now. I'm catering to men who live in Charlotte. So, I've realized that men and humans appreciate going to a retreat somewhere else. They spend a lot of money. They fly away and go to these places, and they come back with a new perspective on life. And yet, life didn't change here. We were doing the do thing while everyone else was at these retreats. Or you listen to a podcast like this one, or you watch a YouTube video of Jordan Peterson talking, or you go to his event like I did the other day, and everyone's there and the excitement is high, and then everyone goes home, just like a retreat. My retreats. So the added layer to this is you have some sort of an awakened state of consciousness. You have a realization about something. But what none of these other experiences in our country offer is a relationship that can sustain you for the rest of your life. And that's what we're offering here. So let's say you leave and realize, hey, I have an unhealthy relationship with alcohol. I don't want to keep drinking. I have my brother next to me who lives down the street from me, or I have this man here who I connected with over the weekend, and we've agreed that we're going to stay in touch. And then our activities and events will continue to build on each other and continue to keep them connected. And what we empower men to do is join one of our small groups. So as they leave, we empower them to continue on and stay connected. And so we have small groups running throughout the city that meet twice a month or more, depending on their desires. And then within that, we empower them because even 12 is too many. They need one. This is the thing. Men get all excited and they want to, and I realize I'm speaking in grandiose generalizations. It's like we're in a culture of more. I want more money. I want more of this. I want bigger, badder, faster, more. I'm saying, no, you need one. You need one man who you're going to leave with at this retreat that you're going to connect with. So when you get back home and you're ready to hit the bottle again, you know you don't have to do this alone. You can call this man. You can keep building this relationship. I don't know any other program that's offering that other than specific specific, maybe a church or some sort of other group in town, but this is citywide. And we're not associated with a church or an agency of some kind.
Mm, 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 mm. All right, so quick list. You do some yoga, you eat healthy, some sharing sessions, some one-on-one stuff, some group stuff, some dance, some cold plunge, some. Go ahead.
Yes.
What else?
It changes each one. And the because I do believe in strength-based leadership. I believe that a human, in this case, a man, is going to perform at his peak level when he's able to lead from his own experience and expertise. And so the men that are leading activities that they have experience in. So, for example, because we believe that introducing men to different modalities that can help them be in their body is something that might benefit them. We have a chiropractor on staff. Now, I'm not saying every man needs to experience chiropractic care, but at least exposing them to the invitation to be served by the chiropractor, the doctor on staff. And if not, at least ask more questions about what is this nervous system that is in my body and how is it impacted. So it's a combination of experiential and educational, but it's also skill building. So aside from them coming in and having the invitation to be served by a chiropractor, we speak about alignment. So the education piece is also experiential in that we're teaching them, like Asher, how to move in your body, how to sit in your body, how to stand in your body, how to just organically create movements for yourself. So that would be one example. And then you would go into a processing group. So you experience, you develop a skill, and then you process. So you talk about what came up for you in your body. It's very body focused. So what happened in your body, what emotions came up in your body, and giving them the language, because that's what nonviolent communication is. Teaching them to have the language to talk about their emotions that come up in their body once they're connected to it. And then we would move to the next activity. So there's usually 2 in the morning, lunch, 2 in the afternoon, dinner, and then an evening culminating experience, which is oftentimes a what we would call an ecstatic dance or an opportunity to move in their bodies with music. But it's very free flowing. So there's no rigidity around it. It has to be a certain way. Lights are off, the music is on, and it's guided by an experienced dance professional who's going to take them on a journey. It's like a wave. He takes them up to the crescendo and then he brings them down. So there's support there.
Hmm.
And I'll reference a man who said, I didn't know that I could experience being in my body in this way. I feel cheated. I didn't know that I've gone my entire life and I never knew that I could feel what I'm feeling in my body and move in my body in this way before. That's beautiful.
Mm.
You guys do a lot of breath work too? Do you incorporate that in?
We do, because it's one of the limbs of yoga. So this is my expertise. And I also know as a therapist that a lot of stress in the body by not breathing deeply. So there's a lot of invitation to either teach them how to breathe throughout the day, or as a psychedelic breathwork facilitator, which I am, we will invite them to go on a journey of breathing deeply for long periods of time with music that's been curated for this event, because I've studied underneath Stan Groff and his trained facilitators who's been leading breathwork for longer than anyone in this country. And so to do it in a way that's really done with integrity and respects the man who's been curating these events for people for, I think it's 50 some years. So yes, we do that as well.
Okay. Thank you for all that. Got two more. Kind of piggybacking on one question Patrick asked. A lot of men are in relationships, another woman, another man, what have you. Coming and doing this kind of work, going inward, getting in touch with themselves. I mean, all the things that you just explained. Now you're going back out into the world. I know you mentioned, having a connection to one other man, a small group. There's support there. Hypothetically, a man who's, say, married, going back into a family, what could that possibly look like? Coming back with all of this kind of new stuff that they've learned, these new experiences, this light turning on, this eye being open, this heart being out. How do you enter back into your world?
Wow. This is good. This is why I referenced, because I suspected this would come up, the book Nonviolent Communication. There's 1,000 books on people's shelves these days. Now we have podcasts and all the things. If there's one book that I recommend, and it's the only book I recommend ever, it's Nonviolent Communication. Why? Because after 25 years of reading a lot of books and writing my own dissertation and going to countless trainings like you all have, and me have probably gone to, with a lot of 3-ring binders. Now everything's digital. As a matter of fact, I just finished my last training, 750 pages. And I've read through all of it, and it always comes back to nonviolent communication. It is a simple and effective way to show up in any situation with other humans and have the tool in your tool belt to be able to identify what is going on with you and how to communicate it in a way so that it's not received as criticism or some sort of a judgmental attack on you or of you. And so we're equipping them with this most important skill, which is in any situation, like when you come back from this amazing retreat and you want to talk about it, how do you do that? What I've realized is we're very skilled in a lot of ways. And what we lack in terms of skill in America, because I worked in public schools for 20 years, is the ability to communicate effectively. So we are educating them and inviting them to experience this type of way of being. And so hopefully when they come home, they can communicate with their spouses or children or whoever in a way that is rooted in their value system. So that's the basis of this communication style, values, and using their awareness of their body and specific words that are associated with what they're feeling, which is the basis for emotional intelligence, to have a vocabulary to explain what you're feeling, and then to be able to do it in a way that is accessible for the other person.
Hmm.
Because you have a great point.
Mm.
I go drink ayahuasca in Peru and I have this transformative experience, and now I got to come home and explain to my lover what happened.
Why I'm not the same person anymore
Yeah.
and never will be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When we talk about integration,
Mm.
whether it relates to you come back from inpatient therapy because you've had an experience with a drug or alcohol or both, or some other kind of therapeutic experience, you still have to come back to everyone else who's waiting for you. Were you given a skill of using your mouth to articulate what you went through and how to get through life? Now that you're in this body in this new way, now you're sober, now you're changed, now you're transformed, now you're liberated. Well, you still have to communicate. And this is the skill that everybody needs.
I love it. Man, I love it. So before we ask our final kind of cerebral question, let's give our listeners a little more logistical kind of, when are your retreats? I know there's 2 a year, but give us a time of year, events that people can kind of dip their toe in, reach out to you, where to reach out. Yeah, those things.
I think this is a great opportunity to emphasize that, having listened to a lot of messaging that men are receiving now as it relates to, and I'm again, a perpetual student of the game, played college football, and as one brother in the retreat told me, Brian, I'm in basic training. Depending on your age, you might be at halftime, which is probably what many of us coming to the retreats are at, or maybe you're in the second half. So there's a lot of talk about masculine and feminine energy, or masculinity and femininity. And we really don't use that language in the retreats. It's about productive energy or productivity and potential energy. So we're not even saying that these are synonymous. Productive energy is masculine energy, and potential energy is feminine. It's really just about figuring out how to show up in the world, and what are you producing? What are you doing? And then, or what are you creating? And then what's the potential out there for something else? What is that? The world is, I mean, look at where we live. It's open, it's wide open. So, in this dance between being productive and productive energy and potential energy, because a lot of men are talking about being more masculine, and it's often gender associated. So, associated with male or female. And we don't get caught in that binary way of looking at life, because people who've come to our retreats, they identify as men. And we've had trans men attend our retreats. We've had men from different sexual orientations, all different walks of life. That's why I want to be clear that this is for any human being who does, it's gender specific in the sense that they identify as a man. And we are trying to liberate ourselves from very specific, rigid boundaries around how we communicate as it relates to being a man and a woman, or even moving away from it having to be man or woman. What is it like to be fucking human? What is that like? Because liberating ourselves from these shackles of it has to be this or that is what a lot of men are wrestling with. Some are even asking, what the hell does it mean to be a man? What is that? What is a man? So these retreats are twice a year. The next one is November 1st through the 3rd, 2024. The site is live. It's my site, and there's a link to that page on my site, brianstrahine.com.
We'll provide that as well.
Yes. And then within those retreats, there's obviously the invitation to join one of the small groups. And then throughout the year, we're always creating, because we see the potential to create opportunities to also produce something. So, like yesterday, 15 men gathered, and women as well, to sit in a tub of ice for 3 minutes at a time. And then we yell and scream and have a good time, which is what happened yesterday. So there's a lot of creating going on within the time between the two retreats. But at the core of this is inviting men to connect with one other man in life so that he doesn't have to feel alone, and that he can lean in on this man. Some are calling it accountability partners. I'm just calling it a friend, a true friend. And I love telling stories if you haven't noticed already. I was walking out of the Dowd Y, our downtown Y, the other day, and a man was wearing looked like an old school t-shirt, and it looked like it had seen a few days. And so I stopped and asked him about it, and he proceeds to tell me this whole story about how his dad went to school at the Dowd when it was a school. I didn't know it was a school.
Mm-hmm.
And he proceeds to tell me about, and I didn't provoke him to tell me any of this whole story about his dad and his dad's best friend, and how his dad lived across the tracks and would walk to this side of the town to go to this school because there was this connection he had with this other little boy. And that this man telling the story about his dad, on his dad's deathbed, who was the person that was holding his hand and rubbing his hand? It was this friend. And so I think this is what every man craves, to know that no matter what, that your friend is going to be there to rub your hand on your deathbed, not giving a fuck about how much money you've made or what your title is or what car you're driving, which is what Instagram is telling men they need to have. Where's your fucking friend that's going to hold your hand on your deathbed? And that's what men's sacred liberation is.
I think that's a perfect way to put a period on it. Brian Strahine, thank you.
Thank you.